Students' representative councils at 10 universities have called for the 52,000 Rand annual NSFAS accommodation cap to be scrapped, saying that funding shortfalls are driving poor and working class students into debt and putting their studies at risk. Chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Higher Education and Training, Tebogo Letsie, says the student leaders of these institutions appear to be defending accommodation costs rather than questioning how the universities justify such high prices in the first place. He joins us now for more on this. Tebogo, good evening. Thank you so much for your time. Really do appreciate it. Let's talk about that. What do you mean by high and exorbitant prices being defended by student representative councils rather than challenging those prices, given that these prices are a function and an output of market dynamics?
No, thank you very much, Oliver. Good evening to yourself. Good evening to the viewers of SABC. Indeed, we have weighed in our opinion on this, and we believe that we're actually shocked that student leaders have indicated that the money that NSFAS is paying is not enough. And if you read their media statements or their joint statements, they don't question anyway how the universities arrive at these exorbitant fees that they're charging. And I want to clear from the beginning that not every student that is at a university is a NSFAS student. So there are students who are self-funded, and the student leaders have not touched anywhere how this capping that they're talking about will affect or is affecting students who are currently at these institutions, who are expected to pay at some point 9,000 Rand for a bed, sharing by that, sharing beds. So for a small room, universities sometimes charge 18,000, or they lease student accommodation to private accommodation, who they are charging 18,000 Rand for a small room that, Oliver, you and I, if we were to go and look for a bed space or a room, will not pay.
Sure.
Even half of
let's
I'm very shocked that students do not look at that point. They only look at NSFAS cap.
Well, let's break that down, because I don't think that's all too fair characterization, Tebogo. If you go to, I'll use WITS because I've posed this question to them exactly on the price cap, why certain university residents cost as much as they do at WITS University. The response that I had then gotten from the spokesperson of the institution was that they don't actually make a profit on the student residences. They charge them what it costs them for largely upkeep. The difference comes in newly built student residences where they still have debt to repay on, which of course you can imagine the development costs having been very high. If you're in a legacy residence institution, you might be paying significantly lower, but it might still cost more than the price cap. So even at the lowest end of the spectrum, take them at their best, the student representatives, that is, Tebogo, if you are in a legacy residence in your institution that's on the lower end of the price spectrum, it might still be higher than the price cap. And this is important to note, because that is what university says it costs to upkeep these organizations, the residences, that is.
Yeah, so, well, I don't take that, Oliver. Let me tell you why. We interact with these universities ourselves. We have interacted with University of Pretoria. Let me make an example about them, because we interacted with them recently. University of Pretoria, cheapest rest cost around 7,000 something rands. And if you look at the number of residences that they own, which is around 8,200 beds, and we met with them, we calculated how much it will cost for them to run the student accommodation, including paying off everything else that they need to have. We were informed by them, not us. We're informed by them that it will cost around 150 million rands to run student accommodation.
Okay.
But what they are getting there it's around 600 million.
I want us to just put a pin in that, because there's an important part of the conversation we also need to address, and that is university residences accommodate, in fact, a lower percentage of students than private residences, which also depend, where students living there also depend on the NSFAS allocation. Private residences have also set their prices. If you live in South Point, hypothetically speaking, in the Braamfontein CBD, you're expected to pay a certain price, which is significantly higher than the price cap. The reason why that is necessary is because universities don't have enough beds for the amount of students in these universities. So something has to give, Tebogo. And one might then say student accommodation for private residences in a place like Braamfontein CBD versus, say, Woodstock in the city of Cape Town might be significantly different. Well, let's use another province, for example. Accommodation cost in Polokwane, if you go to Turfloop, might be significantly higher than if you go to Univen, for instance, living in Toyando. I think it's important that that market disparity is considered in this price cap. A universal price cap seems to be unsustainable.
No, you know, Oliver, let's not run away from the facts that I want to put before you. The first one is that I was addressing the point, firstly, about university-owned residences. I was making an example about University of Pretoria, where University of Pretoria would have told us it cost them around 150 million rand to maintain the residences that they owned. But if you look at how much they were charging, around 600 million. So if you look at that, that is a profit-based from a university point of view. Let me come to your point about
private residences.
Private-owned residences. In fact, before we close this interview, I want to address something about these private-owned residences. There's a residence, you know, when Parliament is in Cape Town, so work in Cape Town. There's a residence that we have went to look at there. It's called Ekaya. It is accredited and leased, or there's a lease agreement with the CPUT, for an example. I'm making just, there are too many. I have a list of all of them, who, by the way, most of them don't even have meet the minimum norms and standards. So when they are being assessed, whether they are supposed to have students.
No, but you're running away from the question. Let's talk about the institutions that do meet the norms and standards.
I'm coming there, Oliver. I'm making an example that they charge the students 9,000 per bed. For what? When they don't have the minimum norms and standards that DHET has put there for them. So if you get into the room, you know, they must be assessed for a university for them to lease or accredit these institutions. And these institutions are giving our students accommodation that is not fit for purpose. That, you know, some of them, you can look, when you look at them, you can see they can even collapse at any given moment. So the argument that says you must pay 5,200 is too little for what? What are we paying for? We do oversight. We go to these accommodation providers or accommodation beds ourselves. And when we get there, we bring people, you know, professionals who must say to us, is this thing, can a student stay here? And they can't. So you are saying the cap, or students are saying the cap must be scrapped. Whatever the university say must be done. It is what it is. We must pay whatever it is. Okay. Even when they don't meet the minimum norms and standard, it can. And I was making an example with one called Ekaya. It's not the only one. There are just too many. Secondly,
very briefly, please.
Very briefly on this point, is that when a university advertises and say, I want to put NSFAS funded students in this accommodation. NSFAS, as we speak currently, pays 5,200. You go and sign a lease as a university of 9,000. Next door to where you are signing that lease, you've got commercial flats. And these flats, a 2-bed with a parking, with a fully furnished kitchen, they charge 9,000 for 2 beds. But you are signing a lease with these people. You mentioned Sound Point here in Brandfontein, for an example. I can go with you at some point, South Point, and show you flats where you and I can go and lease those flats. I would have a 2-bedroom, a fully furnished kitchen, a parking
unfortunately,
lot.
I'm unfortunately out of time, so I'm gonna have to leave it there. Hopefully, you and I can have this conversation again because there's a lot more elements to it to unpack. Tebogo Letsie.
There's only last point that I want to make.
10 seconds, please. 10 seconds.
Yeah, is that we have also gotten information that there's an association of student accommodation which has met with student leaders from this institution who have received now proof of that, pictures and videos, where we believe we are going to now forward these things to law enforcement because we believe they are being coerced in fighting these battles. So this is a capture of some sort of the NSFAS by this, especially I can mention this one because I've seen the pictures and videos of PSHA, which is an association of this.
I mean, I have to now give them a right of response because you've accused them of capture. So you're going to have to share that information with us so that we can have that conversation. Tebogo Letsie is the Portfolio Committee Chairperson on Higher Education and Training. Let's take a short break. We continue on the other side of this.